Peace, peace. Thanks for holding on, people. Family. My nephew got the camera high. Let me see if I can get it down some. Can you see back there? Hold on. Sorry about that. 1 second, fam. Let me get this straightened up for myself. I appreciate that, though. I think that's better for me. Yeah, that's better for me, family. I hope I didn't pull it too close or anything. But peace, family. Hope everybody having a productive day. I had a productive weekend. I just want to get started with this teaching, man. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And like I always tell my brothers and sisters, I'm not here to convert anybody to any religious dogma. I know who I am. I know my nationality, and I know my nationality is a Moorish American. I'm not a misnomer. I'm not Negro, black, and colored. Yes, black is beautiful, brothers and sisters, but it's not a nationality. And if that's how you want to believe, so be it. I'm not here for that debate or dealing with no one's lower self or even mine in that fact. But what we're here to do is challenge our brothers and sisters to research and to study, understand about this science, and understand about these zodiac laws, and it's about understanding who you are. And that's what this science is all about. That's what this divine creed and this nationality is all about. Understanding who you are and understanding the God within. So with that being said, we're going to give a little history before we get in our lesson. But let's jump into our Moorish prayer, and then I'd like to do a little benediction to set things in the atmosphere, and then we're gonna get started. But first, I'd like to give a divine warning by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and the Prophet warneth all Muslims, governors ordered to read the proclamation at each meeting, dated January 15th, 1929, and it reads, Moors, I hereby inform our members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work or in the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Let me move this fan a little bit, making my nose run. Hold on, family. And when these principles are violated, Moors, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. We must know what our divine creed of Moorish Islam is, Moors. All true Moors will and must obey the laws as laid down to us by our prophet. If we lose confidence in the prophet, we should turn in our cards, our buttons, cease wearing our turbans, cease wearing our fezzes, and return to the state where we were found. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, our American prophet. An American prophet. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting the temple, Moors. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. And that's what we're here to do, Moors, and through history and through historical books that's in libraries. When people try to say things are hidden, nothing is hidden. Maybe some are introduced to the science and the wisdom, but it has always been there. The science, the wisdom, all the proof in all the books, it's always been there. There's always been something to compare to debunk any pseudo-academia. And I have to just say from a historical aspect, any Eurocentric propaganda. If you have reference, I tell my brothers and sisters, if you are a Moor and you're part of the Moorish Science Temple of America, we don't destroy anything. Because we can prove the synchronicity in all biblical books, in all religious books. You should be able to prove certain things when I hear brothers and sisters, and especially Moors, dissing biblical scripture. And I said, that don't even make sense. Because we can prove that the so-called black man, Asiatic man, whatever you want to misnomer him to be, is the father of civilization. Proved through biblical history and proved through world history. And we can demonstrate that over and over and over repetitiously. That's what we must understand who we are first and let our teachers really teach. And then build ourselves up. We can operate. But, you know, man, that's why I don't get into arguing, debating with a brother and sister. What I am here as how can I say it, a spark and a vessel. You know, I'm no one savior, but I'm a Messiah for my family. The things that we do, the things that we teach, we should be getting the next level, the next generation to levels that we only thought and heard of. We should be willing to put our money where our mouth is instead of just buying things that doesn't even make sense and arguing about the solution and what we should be doing. We can do it. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate at my lecture. And that's what we're doing now. Let me put one more thing in the atmosphere before we jump in this teaching. Because I also like to set the atmosphere when I get to speaking. Peace, more. Peace, family. I just have to do things. And like I tell my brothers and sisters, I'm not here to debate anyone. I have a love for all my brothers and sisters. I have a love for all fallen humanity. But I have a love for my people. And I must teach them that you're not Negro, black, and colored. From a historical aspect, from a religious aspect, all sciences, no matter if it's masonry, everything's come from the so-called black man, and everyone that has any wisdom, any science, any historicalness, any education that call them scholars will agree. I can pull ancient manuscripts, I can pull books from all across the line that tell you exactly who you were before the Civil War, before the American Revolution. And you let somebody else educate you, and I say, we can do this, man, the right way. We got to let people, just because they may have finances, entertain us with things that can be proven. So, I like to put one more benediction in the air, brothers and sisters. May the benison of Allah be upon thee and thine always. And when I say Allah, I'm not talking about nothing outside of myself. I'm not talking about nothing outside of yourself. When I say Allah, I mean arm, leg, arm, head. I mean manifestation of man. The 5-point star, I can show you in all manifestation. That symbolizes man. I can show you in my other metaphysics. When we talk about the holy place, the most holy place, and a quarter roundabout, when man is made in the image of Elohim, we speak science. We speak understanding who we are. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. I promise you, this is about nothing else outside of yourself. And that's why I get love from brothers and sisters when I tell my brothers and sisters that may be in their lower self stuck in gangs and things. I say, brothers, the so-called 6-point star and the so-called 5-point star belong to the Moors. I show you that in 1929 when I show you the Moor Zionist Jews in New York. When I show you the pictures. When I show you the so-called Israel flag and American flag. This was in the 1920s before Israel was created a state. Moors. We got to understand what the pentagram is all about. I'm telling you. But make haste, Moors, to bestow the acts of love upon all our Moors brothers and sisters, and bestow the best to shun all the evil ones, to take suckle of the breast of knowledge, wisdom, fortitude, charity, love, and all standing, that ye might nourish the souls of all men and women who may want the light, who may be interested in knowing who they are, or who to know the historicalness of who we are, not from any misnomers. Getting out of this so-called color thing, because the color has nothing to do with your personality. I can show you that all over the world. Get into loving, but understanding who you are and understanding this science. That's what it's about. Remember to take suckle of the breast of knowledge, wisdom, fortitude, charity, love, and all standing, that ye might nourish the souls of all men. Let truth be thy shield in the manifest battle of falsehood, Moors. Know us that we need not to pick the lock to the gates of paradise by means of petty Moors or criminal theft. Why, you may ask, Brother Bay? For behold, the key to salvation already rests within our own hands, Moors. And we all can agree, that a portion of our nature is weakness, Moors, instability, and inconsistency. But there is still a greater part of our nature, Moors, that is divine. And that's when I talk about the divine creed of Moorish Islam. If you don't have that, if you don't know what this is about Moors, donate $20. I will ship you the book. You will be able to log on to the lecture for just a $20 donation and have literature. May Allah, may Yahweh, may Buddha, may Confucius, may Jesus, which is Yahshua in the holy name. If we're going to use the biblical names, Acts 24:5. This Precedent brother is the ringleader of the Nazarenes. They're talking about nationality and tribe. But there is still a greater part of our nature that is divine Moors. So may Allah, may Buddha, may Confucius, may Allah, whatever name that you praise, may him lengthen you, give you age, and give you everlasting peace, Moors. If Moors don't understand what I'm saying, we don't agree, that's fine. I'll read from one of our membership cards. These, when I say we don't dish anything, how can you call yourself a scientist, a sheik, and adept, and a person that build bridges if you can't connect the dots of synchronicity and show who you are all across the board and understand astrology, astronomy, mathematics, finance? That doesn't make sense to me. What I do is, I don't have an online page yet, but I just show all my books every week, and all my students just donate $50 a month, and I ship them all the literature. Everything I talk about, I ship it to my students. And that's just what I do, for they can have everything. And a brother was asking me, wow, that makes sense, because we in school, the teachers don't tell us what to get. They just throw stuff down our throat. And I say, that's why I teach systematically, that any question that a brother may have, I teach it from historicalness. I teach spirituality where we don't diss nothing. I prove who we are all through history, man. Brothers talk about law and civics. I teach real law and civics. I'm studying my doctorate in indigenous people law and policy. When I tell brothers and sisters, you going to court on a fraudulent concealment, not from no European, nobody, from your own brother reading a old outdated case, getting you going to court with some bull crap, talking about some old treatise that's been amended, that's outdated. Not knowing the law is no excuse in the court of law. I've been there laughing, man, and when the so-called referee, when he's standing there, I'm looking at one of the Moors come in, he's arguing over his name in caps, over a bill. I'm laughing. You showed up. You showed consent, and you showed that you're obligor. But that's a whole nother statement. Brothers don't want to study. They read a line or something, and they run with it, and they get in trouble. I promise you that. But let's finish Moors. This is your nationality and identification card for the Moorish Science Temple of America and birthrights for the Moorish Americans, etc. We honor all the divine prophets. Let's listen clear. We honor all the divine prophets. On the cards it says Jesus, but I also like to do correction because there never was a J in the Hebrew dialect. We talk about things that can be proven. I can care less about a person's religious dogma. We talk about things that can be proven. What so-called Christians agree on. That's why I say pay attention to the language and not your religious feelings. Because we can't explain that arbitrarily based on our religious dogma if we're scientists. So, therefore, we honor all the divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. May the blessings of the God, our Father, Allah, be upon you that carry this card. I do by here declare that you are a Muslim under the divine laws of the Holy Quran of Mecca, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I am a citizen of the USA. This is all in caps. Noble Drew Ali, the Prophet, 5933 West Madison, Chicago, Illinois, 60644. Moors, if you don't understand real law and real, how can I say, international law, real local law, real state law, real international law, then you'll get caught up in things that really is no fight. I know companies that have their name in low caps. What some are not doing is reserving their rights when they're doing business. When I tell you that you are a business and you can establish yourself up the right way as a whole different entity as a business. But some more they're gonna sit up and tell you stuff because they hustling you and they don't understand business. They don't know how to do things in their community. They don't understand the dynamics of being a nonprofit in your community and in the world. I'm telling you, family. So, with that being said, let's jump into this science, man. If I have time, family, one of my brothers was like, man, please jump in that father of civilization. More, I'm going to be honest with you, man. Who's a good source to connect with in H-Town, More? I'm going to be totally straight up transparent with you, More. I have no idea. Because this is the thing that brothers will start to realize as they start searching more size temples, brothers are coming with their own dogma. Brother, to have you talk about you got to do A, B, and C to do this, to try to sell you something. And I tell brothers that's not right. And so the only thing where I tell brother, you don't have to be in this area to get the wisdom and to be, if you want to be under the right, how can I say it, map or under the right compass. Because we have to understand, we have to know how to use a compass first. And I have to learn how to use the compass first. I have elders. So the thing it is, we have to be willing to check the source. When I tell brothers, when you're courting, are you making sure this woman is right? We're making sure A, B, and C right. We're making sure shoes are real. All them shoes is real. All that's fake. So if we're going to take all that energy into something that doesn't mean anything, let's take all that energy. Let's take our resources and build it and synchronize and brothers and sisters in different states. I'm about to show more of how I'm not asking nobody to put in for this 40 acres that we're going to get in Arizona in Alwatuki. I'm going to show you Morris. We don't have to talk about it. You can look the Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple up on the Arizona Corporation Commission. I am a real 501c3. I teach the dynamics of being a 501c3 to elementary kids. I just did a lecture weeks ago when I used to be on Instagram, and I had my whole lecture on there when I was in a community college out here. And I taught all these students about nonprofit startups, about quick 30s, and about establishing their nonprofits when they're young. And when they graduate out of college, community college and high school, my students will have their own 501c3 with their own tax exempt, not EIN. That's something different, but they have both with their tax exempt status when they're able to do things in their community, when they're able to reach back, just like the YMCA, just like the Boys and Girls Club, just like I'm doing in my city of Flint, Michigan, just like all community that nobody don't want, the city will give it to you. The plight, I'm telling you. And just like in Arizona, my family, like I said, I'm trying to build more in. If they don't, that's fine. But I'm doing this for my family to where we can build our own log cabins and our own pole barns. And I'm not talking about no petty stuff, y'all. You can pull up pole barn homes and log cabin homes, internet when you get a chance. And if you donate the $20 to view the lecture in July in Arizona, the blueprints I'm going to show. It's amazing, man. When I tell brothers and sisters, you can do things lawfully and legally once you understand that. But yeah, man. But those are some things that we're on. But to make a long story short, one of my brothers, his kids was, we always talk about history and being the more, and he was like, man, I love how you talk about history from a historical aspect. And we can have something to compare to, not only for us, but also for our children. And the conversation that me and my parents have would be amazing because a lot of the history that I'm just introduced to by my affiliations of other organizations and being the more, and this is just my life, that it's a lot of things that we think we know, but we really don't know, and it's right in our faces. When we bang on each other about certain things, but won't even stand up against pseudo-academia, No, but all you have to do more, I promise you. All my students, they know about them. Like the ones that donate $50, and I just have to be honest, Morris, because I do a lot of things out here for my people, and I do real things. And I do real things, and I don't ask a lot for brothers and sisters. I just ask, man, when I ask $50 for my brothers and sisters donated each month, one, you get a tax exempt receipt at the end of the year to claim on your taxes. If anybody that's on here that's my students, Brother Prince L, and I have a couple other more, they all get the literature, and they all get receipts. And I ship them the literature systematically. And so once I have enough students, once I gather at least 20, 25 students, then I'm going to start having the online classes where my students log on. But right now, I ship the literature to my students. And I log on, and we all have certain times where we do our teachings. I would travel to your state more. One of the empresses that's a part of our school, man, she was like, isn't it sad how, and me and my mother was speaking, and I was talking about how some Negro, Black, and colors go to church, and as soon as they leave, they complain, but they still get their finances. And most families, if the husband and the wife working, they're given at least $400 a month. That's $50 a piece from each individual. How I know? I did a survey. See, these are the things that I know, man. I'm not sitting up here talking to just babbling off at the mouth. I've been through all religious houses. I stood up in the fire, and I spoke just like this. A lot of our own brothers and sisters have taken an oath to keep you blind, to not tell you the truth. And brothers and sisters, I have to say it, that's Master Masons. They know who the father of civilization is because they have the supreme wisdom lessons. I'm telling you, that's just facts. So, but let's get back to the subject because I don't want to dabble off too much because I do that, man. Believe me, because I have so much to talk about. But one of the topics that I have my young students talk about in history is the 13th Amendment and the so-called abolition of slavery. And the issue, what is the history behind the 13th Amendment? It is self-enacting. What sort of private activities might Congress regulate under its enforcement? And these is just, I'm just giving some of the topics because I have to speak on things that my brothers and my students ask me. So I'm going to just kind of summarize a little bit before we can get into this topic because it's going to be a great one. But I want to give this just in case some didn't know. So get your pens and your papers. But delegates to the Constitutional Convention of 1787 highly debated the issue of slave remorse. And George Mason of Virginia argued eloquently against slavery, warning his fellow delegates. Every master of slaves is born a petty tyrant. They bring the judgment of heaven on a country. As nations cannot be rewarded or punished in the next world, they must be in this. So I hope you understand that science. So Southern delegates, on the other hand, argued strenuously that the new government should not be allowed to interfere with the institution of slavery. Delegate John Rutledge of South Carolina, for example, told delegates that religion and humanity have nothing to do with the questions of whether the Constitution should protect slaves. It was simply a question of property rights. I hope y'all follow me when I talk about the science of not being a misnomer, Negro, black, and colors. When I talk to my Latino and my Hispanic brothers, when I say those are misnomers. Genetically, that's not a such thing. And we're talking about science. I hope more understand. That's like when you do the research, biblical scriptures are written in codes. It's genetics. We're gonna talk about some things, man. And so I hope brothers understand the science. When I say words have duality, when we talk about the esoteric, we connect all the dots. When we talk about the parable, the analogy, the symbology, the analogy, the language, not getting caught up in the linguistic apartheid, not getting caught up in something that should be taken inwardly, taken outwardly, to get you caught up in some man-made religion or dogma. I hope we follow me more. But the Constitution that delegates propose includes several provisions that explicitly recognize and protected slaves or slave remorse. Without these provisions, Southern delegates would not support the new Constitution. And without the Southern states on board Morris, the Constitution had no chance of being ratified. Provisions allow Southern states to count slave as what, Morris? 3/5 a person. And this is the topic I want to talk about. So if Morris, this is the thing you got to understand about that. We talk about this Negro, black, and color thing. We talk about these black codes, and we talk about these things that was lawfully. When you self-identify as a Negro, black, and color, what that really meant. These are things that hold weight today. I hope we understanding that. Not saying that you won't get your head bust for operating in your lower self, but understanding who you are should operate you 720 and elevate you. To make you concerned about who you are historically, to make you concerned about who you are as a business and your children, and operate in love and build. That's what this is about with me. To what I'm going to leave on this earth, it's not going to be a whole bunch of stuff. I show more what my life is about, man. Like when brothers and sisters ask, what should I study? I just bought one of my students the Exhuming of a Nation. See how much the literature costs. These are the things that we do. If we want the literature, we want to teach. When Moore say, when I know a lot of Temple Moors, no disrespect to them all, because I love all my brothers, but we must be willing to be taught. But a lot of them brothers just read the 101s and the bylaws. And I say, man, that's just trustee stuff. I promise you. It's a higher. That's why the prophet said the old Moors must take a back seat to the new Moors, because we must take this to a higher level. We must make this stuff manifest. Not just arguing over what some prophet taught. That's why I don't deal with certain platforms, man. I'm telling you, that's nonsense. That stuff is nonsense. If brothers and sisters want to put your money where your mouth is. If brothers really want to do something, put your money where your mouth is, because all of us have a multiple of things. Just for example of things, tennis shoes. We all have hundreds of dollars worth of tennis shoes, Morris. No disrespect, I love things too. But the level I'm on right now, I'm operating, is land and building, so I can have my own. I'm not gonna buy no $300,000 house in Arizona all next to each other. Man, when I saw the blueprints, when I saw what my uncle and what my dad's cousins did in Florida, and they own land, and they all have 5 acres on their property, it blew my mind. And now I done see it out here in Arizona, how in Ahwatukee and Lake Havasu, all this land, you telling me I can get 40 acres for the price I paid for my Camaro? Man, you got to be crazy. This is what I'm on. And I'm going to show brothers and sisters how we can do this. But back to the teaching. The Constitution that the delegates proposed includes several provisions that explicitly recognize and protect slavery. So without these provisions, Southern delegates would not be support the new Constitution, Morris, right? And they allow Southern states to count slaves at 3/5 a person for the purpose of what? Apportionment in Congress. When I show you the so-called Louisiana Purchase, it wasn't no purchase. Everything was already over here in the States. When I show you Morocco, Jerusalem, all that stuff was already here, Morris. Look at this. Let me show you something. When I show you that when we are the Washington Moors, let me show you something on here. You see where Jerusalem and Morocco is right next to each other? Can you see that? Morris, do you see that? Morris, tell me yes or no, do you see where Jerusalem and Morocco is? If you can't see it, I'll point it on you. I'll point it to you. Do you see what this is, right? You see what this is? The ground plan for, you see what that is? You don't see that? You don't see where? Mo, watch this. I'm about to point to you. About to point to you for you. I'm about to show you. You got Morocco right here. You got Jerusalem right here. You got Morocco right here. You got Jerusalem right here. You got Morocco right here. I'm gonna show you another. I'm gonna show you something else. Yeah, I'm gonna show you something else. This is what's to be taught. You see, the south is up top, north is down at the bottom. These are things that's not taught in school. When I talk about our Empress of the Washita Moors, our Empress Verdice Bay. I'm telling you, this is the stuff that's not taught in school. And I teach this from a scholarly perspective, Moors. So, these are things that's in museums. But Mr. Spacely, you know what? I love. See, this is what I love about my brothers and sisters when I say my page is for learning, because that's okay to say we don't know where to put a question, and we should be, because that's how we were taught. In school, man, if you research, get your pens, it's a thing called the reading list. The reading list is a thing called program learning, where we're only going to teach you these certain things. Everything is recorded, but it's for your own people to teach this. In African American studies, when I do lectures at the universities where I got my master's from, I don't just speak on fake things. I got a master's degree in first century religion and historical history from Grand Canyon University. And when I go back on there as alumni to speak to the student council about real history, they'd be baffled. Like, you got your degree from here. How do you study this? I said, this stuff is in the libraries. We're supposed to study this ourselves. This stuff is in the museums. You must travel to museums and see all the things that's locked in the museums. We don't have to get caught up in a person arguing over their religion. This is old stuff. Nothing that I'm talking about is new. I didn't come up with none of this. This stuff is before me. So that's why when I see Moors operating, I'm like, Moors, if you're saying you're a Moor, you're studying history and science, we should be talking the same thing. That was the ground plans for Louisiana Purchase. Moors, I can show you old maps. I can show you, I'm about to show you some other, I can show you the maps before American BC. Before it was all spread up, everything was connected, and that's how you got some indigenous animals that wasn't indigenous to the land in certain areas. That's how you got some, how can I say, drugs and things in certain areas, because everything was connected, and we were seafarers, we were navigators, we were on the lands, and so we traded not only goods, but we also traded our animals and things. How certain animals that's not indigenous from the area, how did they get to certain areas? If you understand history and things, we brought them there. We weren't pirates. We were navigators. If all you got to do is research the history, the language been changed. Just like in biblical scriptures, when Moors read over Abyssinia, and I say that's Ethiopia. When you see Eber and Heber, and I say that's Hebrew. I can show you so many things, how things was pseudo history, based on nothing, based on someone being able to write something. When I say if the common dating doesn't match the pen, you don't change the common dating, you change the pen. I can show you how everything was reconstructed. Yeah, because everything was already here. More, when I show things, when you will see something called slavery in Egypt, I'll show you that's Illinois. And when I show you that genetically is not a such thing out of Arab, when I show you how Bertram Thomas, a European, stayed with them for 14 years, proving who they are. Just like a European stayed with the so-called Indians and proved that they were with the lost tribe of Israel. Adar. I have all of the research, man. So the work has already been done. We're arguing over who we are, and I said, it's one nationality, many cultures. We don't strip brothers from their culture. That's the thing. If you listen to the wording of the more science, what we do, we honor and debate all the laws and the prophets, Buddha, Yahweh, Confucius. Why? So we don't strip anyone from their culture. Because we understand the essence. When I tell Moors, when I talk about the triple rows of the adept chamber, we must understand the 3 religious rites. If you say you're an adept and you don't understand the triple rows of the adept chamber, understanding the 3 religious rites, then there's no truth in a Moor. You know? But these is things, man. Check this out. Okay, so they were 3/5 of the person for the purpose of apportionment in Congress, even though the slaves could not, of course, vote. Expressly denied to Congress the power to prohibit importation of new slaves, the importation of new slaves until 1808, and prevented free states from enacting laws protecting fugitive slaves. More, don't you know it was laws for people when people talk about stop snitching? Man, when I show you all the documents, if you go back on my pages, I'll show you all the laws and things that was made for so-called slaves for you to tell. I can show you how they made the white constitution, how they killed a whole bunch of brothers in Delaware. I'm telling you, man, because they were in political positions. This is just the things that's recorded. Slavery, as all students of history know, continued to be a divisive issue upon all through the Civil War. When I show you the real cause of the Civil War, when more research how much that history costs. I have it. I'm telling you. Southern states were that the balance in Congress might tip against slavery. And so they were anxious. What do you say? I have so many questions. I do mean to interrupt. Please continue. Maybe you can have a question and answer stream another day. Noble, I'm glad you have I promise you that I'm a teacher. You should have questions. I'm glad you hear more. Believe me, that touches. I'm telling you, I'm a teacher. Man, when I do lectures on all the college universities, and I have to say this, all them other nationalities, Europeans, they say, what's your favorite word? Have your pencils and your papers. And they take notes. Because a lot of this stuff is new. The first thing we have to do with my analogy, I said we have to get a flush and fill and reboot our hard drive. We have to flush and fill all the bullcrap that's been in us. All them toxins, all them foods, all that mucus. We have to be conscious about who we are. And then rebuild ourselves up. And then we have to reboot our hard drive with all that false information, with all that religious dogma. And then have something to compare to. That's what we must do. That's what we must do. We must be willing to sacrifice things. And when brothers and sisters make a sacrifice, I sacrifice. That's what this is about. So I'm glad you have questions, Noble. And that's why when I have students, all the questions that my students have, when we log on and we do teachings, I answer them systematically. They ask also the questions. We sit there, we go over systematically. I give you the research, and we lay all the chips where they may be. But that's a noble thing, to have a lot of questions. That's a noble thing. But the Missouri Compromise of 1820, enacted at a time when slave states and non-slave states had equal representation in the Senate. Did you hear me? Morris, when I show you what they didn't teach you in black history, look, hold on, watch this. Morris, when I did this lecture here on a college campus, when I say we don't need nobody outside of ourselves telling us who we are if we're going to say we scholars. I touched this science all across all boards, politically, religiously, spiritually, historically, agriculturally, financially, dealing about macro economics. I teach it all. So before we get into what something was and wasn't taught, I say, brother, you got to deal with somebody that can tell you about real history, tell you about real civics, not get caught up in their religious dogma and their feelings. And I teach this science, man, across the board. But let's finish where we were at, Morris. Because we can do this all day, man. But okay, we prohibit slavery in portions of Louisiana, purchased north. Okay, so the Supreme Court in its infamous decision in the Dred Scott versus Sanford in 1857 ruled that Congress lacked the power to prohibit slavery in its territories. Did you hear that? And so doing so, Scott versus Sanford invited slave owners to pour into the territories and pass pro-slavery constitutions. The decision made the Civil War inevitable. Chief Justice Roger Taney, writing for the majority in Scott, also concluded that the people of African ancestry, whether free or a slave, including Scott, could never become citizens within the meaning of the Constitution, and hence lacked the ability to bring suit in federal court. Huh? Before the Civil War ended, Congress passed and sent to the states for ratification of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, and authorized Congress to enact appropriate legislation implementing the abolition. The amendment was understood to also make black citizens of the United States. You hear that? Black citizens of the United States. Overruling the Dred Scott on that point. That's why you got to understand the context and the language. When somebody run the court and they just showing you an edit and they come out of court like they won, they ain't did nothing. I promise you, they going back to court. I promise you that. The thing is, you never go to court. You never show up. That's the thing being lawful. Hey, this ain't no thing. You think you know what you're out laying and probably back there running back and forth to court? No. The amendment was understood to also make black citizens of the United States. Oh, I gave you that. The 13th Amendment followed the Senate vote and barely made the 2/3 majority requirement when the vote was announced. You see what I'm saying? So it's things that you got to understand. And all these things, you got to understand precedented cases. And the 13th Amendment has not produced nearly the volume of Supreme Court decisions as has the 14th Amendment or even the 15th Amendment, guaranteeing the vote to black citizens. In 1916, in Butler versus Perry Moores, the court rejected a challenge brought by a Florida man to a state law that required all able-bodied men between 21 and 45, when called to do so, to work for up to 60 hours on maintaining the public roads. Do you hear this science? Did you see this mess? The plaintiff, convicted of failing to put in his time on the roads and sentenced to jail, argued that the law mandated involuntary servitude in violation of the 13th Amendment. Justice McReynolds, writing for the court, concluded the term involuntary servitude was intended to cover those forms of compulsory labor, a kind to African slavery, which in practical operation would tend to produce like undesirable results. Moors. What else? I'm giving you precedented cases. Here go another one. Jones versus Alfred H. Mayer Company, 1969. This ain't no long time ago. Arose when the developer of a suburban St. Louis subdivision refused to sell Joseph Jones a home because he was black. Jones sued the developer, alleging a violation under the 1866 Civil Rights Act, 42 U.S.C. 1982, which granted all citizens of the United States the same right as enjoyed by the white citizens. So the next thing is, how are you going to be a citizen of the United States? Under Section 2 of the 13th Amendment, to ban private discrimination in housing. In Memphis versus Green, 1981, the court reversed a Sixth Circuit ruling that the closing of a road separating an all-white neighborhood from a predominantly black neighborhood constituted a violation of the 13th Amendment. The court found that the modest inconvenience and speculative loss of property value to black residents was insufficient, either to be considered a badge of slavery protected against the 13th Amendment or a violation of the 1866 Civil Rights Act, enacted under the power granted by Congress by Section 2 of the amendment. I mean, it's so much history and things that we don't know about, you know? When we talk about Article 1, Section 2, slave counts as a 3/5 of a person. When you self-identify as a Negro, black, and colored. And that's all I ask my brothers and sisters. They say, well, I'm not no more, and those more is this. Well, it's a whole bunch of Negro, black, and colored that do things. My brother, my baby brother, Akil Jelani Goodman Bey, was killed by a Negro, black, and colored. He was 25. So when we talk about things, and then I see Moors, they say, well, the Moors killed this. Man, brothers kill brothers. This don't make you a killer. The heart make you a killer. The mind make you a killer. Things that if you weak, it make you a killer. This fez don't make you a killer. Hitler's army wore fezes. King Leopold's army wore the fez. A lot of people identified the national headdress, but a lot of people wore it for their own thing. You have to talk to the person that's wearing this to make sure they're right. I hope brothers is following me, what I'm saying. But representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among several states, which may be included within the Union, according to their respective numbers, which will be determined by adding the whole number of free persons, including those bound to serve for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons, i.e. slaves. I hope you following me, man. It wasn't no power to ban slavery, so-called, until 1808. The migration of importation of such persons as any of the states now exceeding shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808, but a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation, not exceeding $10 for each person. You hear that? Free states cannot protect slaves. No person held to servitude or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another, shall, in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered up on claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. What are you? Chattel. Was the Civil War about slavery? In short terms, that's what one of my Moors asks. Absolutely. You got to look up Mississippi 21 paragraph declaration of reasons in 1861 for leaving the Union. You got to do some research too. Only 2 paragraphs, one introductory and the other conclusory, meaning it's concluding. And it did not mention slavery. The state's principal complaints concern the refusal of free states to return fugitive slaves in opposition of the extension of slavery into the territories, Moors. So it's a lot that we must dig with and touch, right? Right, Moors? So let's dig with this science, man. And we're going to talk about the divine lessons of love. And we're going to talk about the introduction of the Akashic tables, and we're done. And we're done, Moors. But the faith, the resident, and the sacred doctrine of our Moor science, of what Noble Drew Ali taught, is the essence, the same as in all true and divine religions, Moors. The holy faith in which all men of truth can find agreement. It must be something that we can come together and build upon, Moors. Just like in the doctrine of Muhammad, Moors, the absolute God sent extreme laws for extreme conditions. Buddha's lessons met the need for universal compassion, Moors. Confucius taught men to think and then to think again. And that Christ within brought the kingdom of heaven and victory over the death, over our lower self, over the enemy, our own enemy. So when we take a conscious step, Moors, into the world of things that's made manifest, we must decisively choose the way of love instead of hate, Moors. We must do that. When man honors man, man honors Allah. That's why I'm not here to disrespect my brother. I'm here to build with my brother. And if there's no light in him, I can try to shed light, and then I'm gone. But if there is any thing or any hope of fulfilling, the true purpose is of life and elevation and illumination. Man, look at all the brothers and sisters that's tried the life of darkness, and look what happened. Look what the darkness brings. So the initial process, more, of our nature, we learn to be patched in love with physical things and the physical world, Moors. We lose the consciousness thereby of the Holy One, of the Holy Breath, the essence of the God within, Moors. We must be a builder instead of a destroyer. This is science, which the words adept. That's where we get these things from. Philosopher or Mason. That's what that actually implies. Those that become proficient in the understanding and the application of the lessons taught through the various traditional, the ancient and contemporary avenues of the philosophical, the mystical, the spiritual, the esoteric, the masonry, the business aspect, to possess the knowledge of the truth and to aid all our brothers and sisters in fallen humanity. You know, that's what we must do. We must uplift, man. But we must understand when we talk this science, the carnal man never want the light. They love the dark because their deeds are evil. You know? We got to understand that every true and divine prophet must contend with the initial rejection and a harsh treatment. They call you crazy and all this, but that's fine. We love the ones that love us. Our message might not always be accepted, almost always universally rejected. At first, and never the message that the people desire. So at first. These are the things when I say more, we connect the dots. We connect all these dots. My empress on here, she said, boy, you got 20 minutes. And watch, I'm going to show you something, that all this scripture belong to Moors. Watch this. Fleshly minded men love the empty forms, the pomp and the circumstance, the pageantry and the extravagant of the eye-pleasing ceremonies. Meaning like to be in front, like that church stuff, like all that stuff. All the glamour or the pretensions, after which there is nothing more required. That's why when brothers say, man, when I go places, when I do lectures on college campuses, they say your temple is not packed. I say, well, no. The people are there, the right people are there. The people that donate online, those are the people that I should be teaching to. I can care less about having a million or all that many students. I'm here for the ones that I'm here for. And then I just share information with my brothers and sisters because I love what I do. You know? And this is what we should do. We should be missionaries. And not afraid to talk about finances. This is what our people should make sure we okay. We can do this. But to overcome a predominantly European-centered theological superstructure in which God was white and his people were black, quite at a disadvantage psychologically to start, Moors. That's what Noble Drew Ali, that's what we're supposed to be teaching our kids. We're not hating anyone, but we're teaching this like, look, I got to show you something to compare to. You know? So what's the practitioners of this Moorish science, the work to honor, to study, to respect, to teach all true and divine prophets, Jesus, which is Yeshua, Buddha, Confucius, Muhammad, with the addition of 18 years, Jesus, which is Yahshua's life, used as an esoteric template, illustrated by the various symbols and mystical accounts of the life, the works, the teachings, and the ministry of the Christ. Moors, y'all know that's what the Circle 7 of the Quran is all about. You know it talks about our masonry tools, the tools that we use to perfect the mind. Chapter 5, verse 12 to 20. Come on, Moors. Y'all know I'm telling them. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then how can you say you study, you're following the teachings of Noble Drew Ali, and you're not reading the holy book, the Moorish Quran? How? How? Because when you read it, we wouldn't be dissing the Tabbathan. We wouldn't be dissing all of the Eastern knowledge. When the Messiah in the flesh tarried to those places. When he traveled to Luxor, when he traveled to the Mediterranean, to Egypt, to Luxor, to India. If we're just going to tell the things and record it from a historical perspective, but our American prophet, Noble Drew Ali, his doctrine of Islamism is presented in cryptic, unconventional language as an abstract synthesis of religious faith, philosophical knowledge, and mystical illumination Moors. We're talking about Islamism. Man, don't you know the ancient Sufis? That's what they taught. God and man is one. Zoroastrianism, God and man is one. We're going to talk about this right here. That's what this is all about. This is about self-mastery. This ain't about nothing outside yourself. We talk about ancient tablets and people telling you something and they reverse it and then you calling it Illuminati scary stuff. And I say all them Europeans, Alice Crowley, no disrespect, they talking about you. I promise you. I promise you. I'm introduced to a lot. I'm part of the Philosophical Research Society. When I go there, I go to the back, all the science is there. Their literature will tell you where they got the science from. They'll tell you. They'll tell you where Manly P. Hall, that's 32 and 33 degrees of wisdom. That's material wisdom. That's when water freezes. That's snowman wisdom. I promise you that. I promise you. Adam Blavatsky, all that mysticism, all taught by Moors. Randolph Beverly Pascal, he wasn't a European. I keep telling you, brothers, they changed things. If you don't understand first century pictures, man, I can show you pictures, man, in the first century of some of the 6 Negro presidents. When you see the ancient pictures that's in the museums, you see the modern pictures, how they changed the hair. They try to make it snowy, but it's 6 Negro presidents. These in the doctoral libraries, man. You don't got to listen to me. But even today, some are confused by what is thought to be Ali's racial definitions of black, which he defined as, according to science, means death, and white, which his literature says means purity. Purity means God, and God means the ruler of the land. That's all. People get their feathers ruffled when they say, oh, black this. No, he said in science. And then Obama told you in a court of law why you don't identify as black when it has to do with who you are. If you understand, man, in school, in public school, they taught you the color spectrum wrong. Most of our babies think that the color spectrum comes from white to darkness. That's false. Everything comes from darkness to light. Why you think in the public school they put the kids, that's a person, in the same category as place and a thing? A place and a thing are things can be owned, like this book, like this TV. Come on, man. People be thinking that melanin, that dark, means death. Man, you've been taught wrong. That means life. Why do you think the European nations wear black? What do you think they symbolizing? I'm telling you, I can show you so much science, man, where it's symbolizing you. Black don't mean symbolize death. When somebody died, the white symbolize it because there's no carbon in it. The white, why you think certain mothers wear the red rose? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Come on, man. If more understand the science what I'm talking about, somebody walk with me. Y'all know, black don't symbolize death, but the white rose do. This is science. We're gonna talk. We're gonna build. That's why we have to avoid confusion. But it would quite naturally happen. But if we don't have nothing to compare to, we would think this GMO, which is genetically modified organism, no matter if we eating it or hearing it or listen to it, thinking it's real food. You know? We got to remember that more science teaches that there can, in reality, be no such thing as colored people, black or white. These are things that have been proven. When I tell you, white as a class, I hope you follow me, man. The answer is found in the temple teachings from our Holy Quran pertaining to the death, the burial, and the resurrection of the so-called Christ. I can show you all through in historical, all in history and law, all through the doctrine of the discovery, all through Othello the Moor, all through the chosen people, all before the Civil War, before the war of Ferdinand and Isabella, what Lois and Clark seen out their mouths, and the sacred connection with the silent brotherhood, among whom white symbolic of purity and light. Our inner life, our thoughts, feelings, emotions, communications more with our fellow men should cause us to ask ourselves some hard questions, questions that we have avoided asking in the past. We got to be willing to do this and do the research. This is what we're supposed to be doing. I don't have time to be playing. Just what have happened if we changed the way that we thought? Our views of life in general and the life in America in particular. You are home. When I tell you, we talk about going somewhere, this is the only place I want to be. This is the only place where you can speak freely as a free man. I tell people when I show pictures back in the day, there wasn't no slaves. Everybody wasn't no slave, man. You got to be crazy. You got to be crazy. What if we continue to rediscover and redefine ourselves? What if we just flat out refuse to continue being the victims? What if we choose to believe more, despite any disagreement, that we can be the best instead of the worst? When we put our thinking caps on, when we put our turbans on, why are we afraid to be who we are? What if we chose to allow our true history, the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding of the sacred sciences of our forefathers to resonate in as hope? What will happen in our communities, Moors, in our temples, in our churches, in our schools, if teachers like myself and others that's taught from a historical perspective and not from no dogma? We have the power. When people be talking about false prophets, they're only good by the people that support that bull crap. But what will happen if they refuse to participate in the perpetuation of the distorted true versions of our history and our spirituality, but rather with due diligence, wrote our own history and simply refuse more to participate and do our own research? What if we started to do that? Our religion should help us in our noble pursuits and our noble aspirations of truth. Philosophy should help us in thinking. Religion don't want you to think. Most religious people, all they talk about is pick up a Bible. They know a verse. They don't even live by the book that they so-called believe in. Because if they did, they agree to everything I'm saying. Because their belief is based on a lie. But they should be thinking intensively and profoundly. You know? We should be encouraging each other. You know? One without knowledge of self is like a tree without roots, Moors. And one without knowledge of God has yet to become a tree. But we discovered that even anger is good energy, which when it's harnessed and focused by the power of a concentrated thought, is fuel, it's motivating power, and is capable of energizing us, enabling us to perform the most difficult task or under the most strenuous circumstances, Moors, in order to do what? Reach our desired goals. I can go on and on, but I want to stop, man. I want to stop right there. I want to stop right there. I'm going to give you a little bit about this, the Akashic record, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of what my empress said. You got 20 minutes, okay, about the Asiatic, the black man. And when I say black, please don't take it out of context. But we just using that, explain the color. Just like Negro beans, Negro beer. That ain't saying the nationality of it, but that's if you're going to identify something as a color. So let's not take things out of context when we speak. But the Human Genome Project, that's in the Book of Life. And I'm talking about Moors. I'm talking about the Akashic records. These are things that we get when we get into our higher self, understanding who we are, supposed what we do on this earth. That's the science that we teach. We just not sitting up here talking about some old history. We teach business and civics and how to put dollars together and get resources and build. But the Human Genome Project is opening the book of life. More, it's Revelation 20 and 12. That's why I say it's things that's encoded in the scriptures that you must understand. When I talk about 666, it explains the Roman government, but it also explains the chemical makeup of man. 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. When I talk about the 12 deacons, when I talk about every constellation have 12 deacons, we talk about your hippocampus. When I talk about what's above is below. So let's dig. Revelations 20 and 12. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were open, and another book was open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to the works. That's when I say more, we're going to interpret everything. So the reasons why the science of genetics is so important for us Moorish Americans and us Moorish scientists and us adepts that do the research is because we realize that our human body, I didn't say mankind, our human body or organisms is the key to understanding the nature of this universe, Moors. The microcosm man is a scale model of the what? Macrocosmic man or God. That's the above, so below. My Moorish master masons, if you follow me, somebody say something. Somebody talk to me. But we are exact scale models of the universe. Macrocosm, only a smaller scale of what? Microcosms. Just like in business, you have what? Macro and micro. And the biomolecular worlds are scale models of us on an even smaller scale, Moors. So thus, what I'm talking about, the directive, the man is to know thyself. This is because by knowing ourselves, by knowing who you are, you will know the all of creation. You will understand all the zodiac laws. I hope you understand what I'm saying. And if a Moor don't understand the zodiac laws, then they operate only on religious dogma. And that's just 360 of wisdom. That's material wisdom. 720 is the total sum of both spiritual and material wisdom. You must master your higher self. We must always keep in mind that when we say new Moors, no disrespect to nobody, but when we say new Moors, we talk about a new consciousness. The ones that's in the Aquarius, the ones that's into helping fallen humanity and not just debating. But we must use ourselves as the blueprint or the model upon which to build our society, our economics, our government. You know? That's why when I say we don't build nothing, we don't destroy nothing, this is all about you. I can show you my brothers that used to gangbang when I go to the prison, when I showed them how they was tricked, when I show you how the satanic spirit and the lower self will take everything good that the Moors and the indigenous people use and they take it for evil. When I talk about the 6-point star, the 5-point star, when I talk about a lot of the signs and symbols, when I talk about the G that's on it, when I wear on my Master Masonry Morris hat with the G in the compass and square, which everything is divided upon, those are the same signals that the gangsters use. I'm telling you, man, we connect this. When I say we just got to change the focus. That's all we got to do is change the focus. And once we're willing to do that, man, we take over the world. But this is what the biblical scripture says. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish and the sea, and over the fowl and the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over creeping things that crept upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Created he them. Follow the language, man. Don't let nobody tell you what something says and they ain't willing to break the language down. Because they lying on things. They telling you the Bible's about some white man. Show me. Somebody show me. Somebody show me where you can show me that the Bible is about some white man. And I'll destroy that. And I'll show you the Bible is all about the Asiatic man, the black man per se. Whatever you want to misnomer. We're going to dig on that before we close. That's in Genesis 1, 26 and 7. The image and likeness refers to our microcosmic scale model. Relationship with the Allah, the God, the Great Spirit. In order for us Moors to do our job in raising fallen humanity, Moors, we must first pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps per se and raise ourselves to a higher level of existence. And by pulling ourselves up, who are the most fallen of humanity. We will have qualified ourselves to perform our job in uplifting the world. How? Once we uplift ourselves. That's how. Our prophet said a beggar nation can't save itself. We have all the resources to do what we want to do. We're begging. We think we're supposed to get something. This ain't about squatting and nothing. How property was getting attained, they were purchasing it. They were purchasing it. Moors wasn't squatting and nothing. We were purchasing it, pulling our resources together. And that's what I'm going to show brothers to do. You know? The forms of society and social orders that were formerly lived in accord with cannot help or save us or the planet in this age of ours. What we have to do is build ourselves up. That's why our prophet said that the new Moors would put the old Moors in the back seats and fulfill his ultimate plan. Moors, I'm going to leave you with a little bit of this and we got to move on. But the phrase human genome, human G-E-N-O-M-E, means the complete set of human genes found within our 23 chromosomes. The Human Genome Project is the mapping of this human genome. I said you must understand how to break yourself down and build yourself back up. That's the alchemy. That's the arcana. Somebody telling you it's about some gold. It's about you. It's about understanding how you operate. The project has completed the mapping of the human genome and has published a first draft in February 15, 2001 issue of Nature. Research that. Just imagine that the genome is a book. And there are 23 chapters called what? Chromosomes. Before there was 24. Each chapter contains several thousand stories called genes. Each story is made up of paragraphs called what? Exons, which are interrupted by what? Advertisement called introns. Each paragraph is made up of what? Words called what? Codons. Each word is written in letters called what? Bases. There are 1 billion words in a book, which makes it longer than 5,000 volumes. The size of this literature that we're researching more is as long as 800 Bibles. So the genome, the autobiography of species, in 23 chapters, get that by Matt Ridley. You know, I'm giving you science. You know, each one of approximately 1,000 trillion cells in our body has a nucleus, inside of which there are 23 chapters or pairs of chromosomes. Huh? You see the science, how we build, how all the numbers add up? We previously had 24 chromosomes, but 2 of them fused together, forming the 1. Thus, we now have 23. Man, this is science, man. That's why the book of life is written using a very ingenious alphabet of 4 letters. There we go with that 4. That quad, that YHWH. When brothers say they read the hieroglyphics and they study the metronether, and I say, well, if you study the metronether, then you should see right in the hieroglyphics where it say YHWH. If we're gonna connect the dots, I tell you, it's a synchronicity. But the alphabet of 4 letters, which in turn forms 3 letters, words called codons. These codons in turn forms to what? Paragraph called exons. These paragraphs or exons are divided by what, Morris? Introns, or so-called junk DNA. The exons or paragraphs from the genes, which are like stories within the chapters, called what? Chromosomes. We just breaking things down. That's why the book of life can do things that other books cannot. When the vessel is right, where brothers be talking about doing all these rituals, I don't give a damn, excuse my candor, about a ritual. If the vessel is right, it's not right, that crap don't mean nothing. But when you get real science, it can do 2 things. It can read itself, which is a translation, and photocopy itself, which is a replication. And a replication, photocopying itself is possible because why? The A base will only pair up with what? The T base. And here we go with some more science. Watch this. And the G will only pair up with what? The C. I hope Moore's following this science, Moore's. So a single strand of RNA will what? Replicate itself by putting together what? Complementary strand with the A's opposite to the T's, and the G's opposite to the C's, Moors, forming the what? What I said about early, the double helix. The double helix. I mean, look at this science. The original strand, it's opposite, forming what? To make a copy of the original strand, the opposite strand merely separates and then puts together its opposite, which will be an exact copy of the original strand. That's ingenious. That's why when you must understand science, when I say from darkness comes light. Moors, I hope you're following that science, what I'm saying. Please follow that science. In everything. In everything. Sometimes when replicating, photocopying itself, mistakes happen. Sometimes the letter is omitted. The wrong letter is inserted, or a sentence or a paragraph is reversed. This is known as what? Genetic mutation, which can be good or bad, depending on the other context. Moors, remember when I talk about the pendulum word? When I talk about the Yoso Somos code? When you got high out to the right, high out to the left? That's a whole other subject. We're talking about science. When we can prove, connect everything. But Moors, the information contained in your genetic code is your genotype. When I say you got to understand your astrological sign. These are things, these are the zodiac laws. If a Moor say he don't understand the zodiac laws, he's not no sheik and no adept. Because you must understand everything and be a science and be willing to study it all. But the information contained in your genetic code is your genotype. That which is hidden in each cell. It's inherited. The characteristic, such as the color of your hair, your eyes, is what is known as your phenotype. You know, that which you express, the process of translation is the key in translating that which is hidden, Moors. So the genotype into that which is revealed is the phenotype. Are you following me, Moors? We got to know who we are on this earth plane and stop operating as some little, how can I say, kings or princess. No, if you're going to operate a God, as the scripture says, we are made in his image, well, we must act like a God on this earth. The biblical scripture says you want the same thing on earth as it is in heaven. The flesh don't have to be gone for you to operate as a God on this earth. Who told you that a part of you is evil and must die? Who told you that? Who told you that crap? Your preacher? I'm a minister of the truth. I'm a minister of the gospel. I don't diss nothing. I stand strong on principles, man. I'm a minister of the gospel. Somebody must stand in the belly of the beast and say, oh, no, this is what this is about. And give brothers and sisters to research it. But the way translation works is a copy is made of text of a gene, just like in a replication Moors. But instead of forming its opposite, the A, the T, the G, the C, understand of a DNA, it is formed on the RNA, Moors, which is similar but slightly different than the RNA uses the same letters, except that it substitutes the U or the uracil or the eucrasal, the URACIL in the place of the T, the thymine. We're talking about your body. When brothers don't understand about how removing things out of your body will make you feel better. Removing what? Genetically modified organisms. I'm telling you, simple. This ain't no mystery. This ain't none. This all old stuff. The RNA copy is called messenger RNA, and it's edited by the removal of the introns or the so-called DNA, and the splicing or the jointing together the exons. I'm talking about your body, man. The microscopic machines called ribosomes move along the messenger RNA, translating each three-letter condoms. Remember I said every constellation have 3 deacons? When I'm talking about what's above is below, into one letter of a different alphabet, made up of 20 letters. Each letter corresponding to a different amino acid. These amino acids form a chain that matches the messenger's RNA. The condoms, every 3 condoms on the messenger, The RNA corresponded to one amino acid on the amino acid chain, Moors. You follow me? The chain of amino acids folds itself into a what? Distinctive shape, depending on its sequence of amino acids, depending on what's inside you. Becoming what's known as what? Becoming what's known as what? Somebody becoming what's known as what, Moors? Protein. When Moors look, this is how when brothers and sisters talk about they need protein, when I say, man, if you understand who you are, you understand minerals come from Mother Earth. Mother Earth. A handful of black beans have way more protein than a 20-inch steak. And if you don't understand that, well, you don't know who you are, and you don't understand the things that have seeds. It gives life. Everything. Almost everything in the body, Moors, from hair to hormones, is either made of proteins or made by them. Every protein is translated genome, the autobiography of species in 23 chapters. Get that research by Matt Ridley. You can research this. Thus, it can be seen that it's proteins that are building blocks of the temple, which is the body. And the genes are the instructions on how the building blocks are to be cut, dressed, lifted, placed in the temple. We are temples, which during the construction of, there was not heard a sound or axe nor hammer. Moors, let me leave you with this. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone and made ready before it was brought here or thither, so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was built. Do you know the analogy of that in the scriptures in the Bible, 1 Kings 6 and 7? One of the biggest surprises that have resulted from the Human Genome Project has been the fact that it was initially thought that the more complex an organ is, the more genes it will have. It's just things that we got to know, man, that we can't get caught up in false wisdom. You know, we have to know who we are. We have to know how this world operates. We have to know space and mind. We have to know that our space is the portion of the universe beyond the immediate influence of the earth and her atmosphere, Moors. We have to know this. Nowhere in this universe is space empty. There never was a time when man was not, man. It's occupied by extreme continuous matter, generally gas and solids. From this, Moors, we see that space and time are actually intimately intertwined. Just like heaven and hell is within. Just like the thermostat don't go outside itself for hot and cold. It just depends on which way the pendulum swings. Matter exists as gas and as dust, grains in the space between stars. Just like when we talk about the unity, water, liquid, gas, all the same thing. You can't have one without the other. That's a unity. Space is the property of the universe associated with the extension in 3 mutually perpendicular directions. Right? Providence is derived from Morse Latin, meaning prove and provide. That is to say, be guided by scientific knowledge. Be guided by scientific knowledge of reality and share it with the unfortunates in order to liberate them mentally and thus solve their own problems, Moors. God is science of the human mind, realities, Moors. The devil is religious mythology, unreal, which spells emotional, religious insanity, hatred, disunity, fear, violence, and destruction, Moors. Those who only believe in providence, realities, and self, and humanity, and knowledge of solutions of problems to live are violently and secretly hated by ones who believe only in Allah, or only in God, or only in Christ, or only in Jehovah, or only in Jesus, the so-called religion church, the temple and the mosque. But if you are more, if you understand what I'm saying, we don't operate under one religious creed where we miss the essence of the rest. I just gave you the science. Jesus, so-called, which is Yahshua, the so-called religion. You know? Such is the perspective of religion insanity, which I like to call it. Some of our own family religious insanity, when I ask them, what are you? I'm a Christian. Okay. This instantly, or this insanity makes a religious person condemn the very thing they proclaim to love. And I'm about to show it that I'm out. They proclaim to love. They, namely, the living truth, the work, and the nature of the zodiac, which is a reality themselves. They don't understand about the sun and the 12 zodiacs off it. They don't understand that they pray to the sun, the real sun. But this process of religious insanity makes them unconscious, criminals, crucifiers, and murderers by trade. So I can talk about that more, zodiac, man. We got to understand that. My empress said I got 10 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. I'm going to give you this. And we gone. We got to know this, man. We got to know this. We got to build. And we got to be willing to give it to all our brothers and sisters so they can research it. And they can have the literature. All I ask for a donation, be a student. $50 a month, get you all the research. Donate $20, you can get literature. The lecture in Michigan is going to be amazing, I promise you. I'm going to leave you with this. Because I told my brother, he's on now, and I told him I'm going to leave you with this for, he just been asking, please show me, because I'm tired of brothers dissing things, especially if they're not researching the language. So, when I talked about how the Bible gives the first and only account of the origin of humans and mankind, and how we just been lied to by prejudiced historians and lecturers, even of our own kind too. You know, how it's been quoted that Ham, the father of the so-called black man, was cursed by his father Noah. So now in regards to this incitement, get your pencils and papers, and I want you to write this down and research it. And ask your parents, the ones that's where they study the scriptures. Let us take the biblical record for it. Anyone not blind with prejudice will be convinced by reading the book of Genesis, the 9th chapter, from the 20th to the 27th verse, more inclusively, that Noah did not. He could not curse Ham, but he did have an intoxicating fit and pronounced a curse on Canaan, the son of Ham. And you got to mention that Canaan was never inconvenienced by no curse of Noah, because he was the father of 7 prosperous nations, right? One of the most famous were what? The Canaanites, the Phoenicians, and the Sidonians. Research this, Moors. You let somebody separate you. The Sidonians sprang from Sidon, who was the first son of Canaan, according to Genesis, the 10th chapter, the 15th verse. These same Sidonians are the men descended from the so-called black men who Solomon ordered Hiram of Tyre to engage to do the skilled hewing and designing of the temple work of Solomon temple. Solomon declared that these Sidonians, these black men, were the only men possessed with anywhere near sufficient skills to take charge and sufficiently complete the artistic timber work on his Solomon's temple. What? These Moors master masons. 1 Kings, the 5th chapter, the 6th verse, speaks very plainly of this fact. Research it, write it down. Solomon knew that the black race was superior and not inferior race. Why? He married Pharaoh's daughter. Research in 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse, the 7th chapter, the 8th verse, also the 9th chapter and the 16th verse. Write this stuff down. Solomon's wife could have been even darker skinned than he was. History shows that Egypt had 2 full-blooded Ethiopian pharaohs. When you research in the biblical scriptures, Ethiopia, and a lot of them was Abyssinia. The holy names, the ancient names, just like when you get the 1599 Geneva Bible, it don't say African and Ethiopian, it clearly says more. Research it. But they had 2 full-blooded, but Egypt had 2 full-blooded Ethiopian pharaohs just before and during the reign of Solomon, according to Herodotus. The names of the 2 Ethiopians or Abyssinians were Sabakos or Sebatos. You feel me? The Bible don't show nowhere that God ever turned a black man to disgrace him for his sins. Nowhere. The Bible does show that the power that the Spirit had, if we're going to quote scripture, turned a man white to disgrace him because of his sins, and said that his seed would be likewise forever. Right? Read carefully the 5th chapter of the 2nd Kings and the 25th, the 26th, and the 27th verse. Research those. Many of our high civilized brethren whose ancient ancestors disgraced them. We got to research this. Research it. Research this, man. You got to research that essence. If you want to call it God, whatever. It allowed the Asiatic man, it allowed the black man, whatever you want to misnomer it. It allowed that you to be, it allowed that Ethiopian, that Abyssinian blood to flow in the veins of, if we're going to quote the scripture, Jesus Christ, Yahshua the Messiah. If we want to quote their biblical book, which is all about geographical landmass and about family. But if you're going to do things, you can unhesitantly assert that Jesus, which is Yahshua, in America today, be classified as a nigger. And I'm going to use the name more. And I'm only asserting from the Bible. According to which Jesus, which Yahshua was born out of what? The tribe of Judah. Don't have Morris, if you on your nationality card on your paperwork, are we from the tribe of Judah? Lineage of David by blood? Come on, Morris. According to which Jesus, which is Yahshua, was born out of the tribe of Judah, pertaining to the biblical scriptures. Judah only had 5 children, and they were males. Research 1 Chronicles 2nd chapter and the 4th verse. 3 by his first wife and 2 by his second wife. Research 1 Chronicles in the 2nd chapter, the 3rd and the 4th verse. And both of his wives were descendants of who? Canaan, a black man who was the son of Ham. Research Genesis the 10th chapter and the 6th verse. Tamar, we talk about these Asiatic women, we talk about these Moabites. Tamar, Judah's second wife, bore him 2 of these sons, whose names were Phares, P-H-A-R-E-S, and Zerah, Z-A-R-A-H. You can research this in 1 Chronicles 2nd chapter and the 4th verse. These 2 names appeared in the genealogy of the so-called Jesus Christ, Yahshua Messiah's life, in the book of Matthew, 1st chapter, the 3rd verse. This simple science, this elementary. So there's no trouble to see that Judah, of whom Christ was to come, started out by presenting the world children of Canaanite women who were Hamite descendants. Now, the so-called Virgin Mary, we get caught up because they switching the names. Of whom Christ was born, was beyond a doubt a woman out of the tribe of Judah. And every Bible reference proclaims that Jesus, which is Yahshua, was to spring from the tribe of Judah. But they confuse you, trying to tell you that the name was too holy for you to say. That's crap. How your Messiah's name is too holy for you to say? And in our Moorish Quran, and in all Qurans, and even in the scriptures, even in the biblical scriptures, it says that a prophet comes in the voice of the people, for the people can't be confused. That's what a Messiah and a prophet is, Morris. Don't let nobody tell you that lie. Virgin Mary, of whom Christ was to born, was beyond all a doubt a woman born out of the tribe of Judah. The Bible proclaims that Jesus was to spring from the tribe of Judah. Don't it say that? Genesis 49, the 10th chapter, Hebrews 7 to 14, Revelations 5, the 5th chapter and the 5th verse. In the scripture of Romans 1 and 3, it says that Jesus, which is Yahshua the Messiah, was of the seed of David according to the flesh. David is the 10th man named of Judah in the genealogy of Jesus the Christ. And then you see Moors and with brothers that misnomer themselves as Hebrew Israelites. I love all y'all. But we got to understand, we be specific. I'm being specific. Not misnomers, things that's in records. That's all. On all boards. That's all. But in genealogy of Jesus Christ, it can be found in Matthew chapter 1, chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, and in the 6th verses, Moors. Remember, if we're going to just touch on things, David's great-great-grandfather, Booz, B-O-O-Z, was born of the woman Rahab, who was a direct descendant of who? Ham, which in the biblical scripture is Matthew, the 1st chapter, the 5th verse. This also shows that David, one of God's greatest soldiers, was one of the most successful to lead his people, and who had Negro blood, Moorish blood in his veins. The Bible history is full of honors of the Asiatic, the black man, the Moorish man. Jethro, the Ethiopian, when you read in the 1599 Geneva Bible, the Moorish father-in-law of Moses, who was the author, who first employed that, which is today our judicial systems, considerably twisted and revised to meet the changing conditions of civilization. Exodus 18th chapter. Where did they get that from? From Kemet. When you research King Men and Kairu. When I say everything is built upon, you can trace everything back, man. We don't, masonry comes from the Moors. Other brothers operate in their lower self. You got to remember that Moses, the Hebrew word, emancipator, was named by a black woman, per se. That's what they would have been identified as. That's what they would have been identified as. So I'm just telling what they would have been identified as. A black woman, Pharaoh's daughter. She says she called him Moses because she drew him out of the water. Exodus 2:10. And besides, black men educated Moses. At any rate, he received what education he had in the schools of the black people. Of where? Egypt. Acts 7 and Acts chapter 7. The 22nd verse. Don't you know in the biblical scriptures, Mizraim is Egypt? Mizraim is Egypt. Memphis is Egypt. Man, I hope y'all know this science, man. No wisdom come from the West. Everybody came to Egypt to study the wisdom. When you hear the Moors, when you hear European Masons and Prince Hall Masons with that 32 and 33 wisdom, that's only material wisdom. We have 99. I promise you. I teach the science. I mean, it's just what it is, man. It's just what it is. You know, I love all my brothers and sisters, man. We're going to leave it right there. But I love you all, Moors. I love you all. Dedicate, man. Donate. The lecture in Michigan is going to be amazing. Oh, my Empress says show them this. Okay. When you get a chance, Moors, research. I'm giving you a little expert of We Are the Washita Moors real fast. I already have to show. But this excerpt from a report during the Lewis and Clark expedition, retrieved from the National Archives in Washington, Washita, D.C., courtesy of Return of the Ancient Ones, the Washita Files. This is what Lewis and Clark in their reports stated, and I'm out. The Tunicas, Tunicas, these people formerly lived on the Bayou Tunic, above Point Coupe, Coupee, on the Mississippi east side. Live now at Avoyelles, Avoyelles. Do not, at present, exceedingly 25 men. Their native language is peculiar to themselves, but speak Mobilian, are employed occasionally by the inhabitants as boatmen, in amity with all other people, and gradually diminishing in numbers. Washas. When the French first came into Mississippi, this nation lived on an island to the southwest of New Orleans called Barataria, Barataria, and were the first tribe of Indians they became acquainted with and were always friends. They afterwards lived on Bayou La Forge, and from being a considerable nation, are now reduced to 5 persons only, 2 men and 3 women, who are scattered in French families, have been many years extant as a nation, and their language lost. The Choctaws, the Chactoos, live on Bayou Boeuf, or Beouf, Boeuf, about 10 miles to the southward of Bayou Radip, on Red River, Thousand Opelousas, a small, honest people, are aboriginals of the country where they live, of men about 30 diminishing, have their own peculiar tongue, speak Mobile. The lands they claim on Bayou Boeuf are inferior to no part of Louisiana, in depth and riches of soil, growth of timber, pleasantness of surface, and goodness of water. The Bayou Boeuf falls into the Chateli and discharges through Opelousas and Attakapas into Vermilion Bay. The Choctaws. There are a considerable number of the nation of the west side of Mississippi who have not been home for several years. About 12 miles about the post of Oquita. Remember I told you about the slave ports of Cuda? On that river there is a small village of them, of about 30 men who have lived there for several years and made corn. And likewise on the Bayou Chico, in northern part of the district of Opelousas, there is another village of them, of about 50 men, who have been there for about 9 years and say they have the governor of Louisiana's permission to settle there. You hear that? Besides these, there are rambling hunting parties of them to be met with all over Louisiana, lower Louisiana. They are at war with the Cataquis, and like by neither red nor white people. The Arkansas, likewise Arkansas River, Southside in 3 villages, about 12 miles above the post or station. The name of the first village is Tauxonima, Tauxunima. Second is Osula, Ousolu, and the third is Okapa. In all, it is believed they do not at present exceed 100 men, and diminishing. They are at war with the Asagis or the Asagis, but friends with all other people, white and red, are the original proprietors of the country or that river, to all which they claim, for about 300 miles about them, to the junction of the river Cardon, with Arkansas above this fork. Ogasis claim their language is Osag. They generally raise calm to sell, are called honest and friendly people. The forementioned are all the Indian tribes that I have any knowledge of or can obtain account of. In Louisiana, south of the river Arkansas, between the Mississippi and the river Grand, at Voleus, there did live a considerable tribe of that name, but as far as I can learn, have been extant for many years. 2 or 3 women excepted, that did lately live among the French inhabitants at Washita. There are few of the Hussini still living on the east side of the Mississippi. In Suez's parish below Manchac, but secretly exists as a nation. It's there, man. You know? So what we do, man, we just enlighten our brothers and sisters on history and learning who we are and destroying all pseudo-academia from our own brothers and sisters that stand and preach a false doctrine. We should let that mess go. We should let it go, Moors. I love you all. It's one of my peoples. Love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, health, and wealth. Peace, light, and illumination. Oh, you said where do we donate? Brother, all you have to do, brother, is download the Cash App to your mobile phone, Moors. Once you do that, Moors, all you have to do is download our temple number to the Cash App to your mobile phone. Our temple number is 702-727-4775. That's 702-727-4775. Once you download, ain't that our temple number? 702-272-4775. That's my number. Once you download that to your mobile phone, to your Cash App, man, I'll just start shipping you books, you know. But if you want the books that me and my empress gathered and compiled, I can put the list together, which should be ready soon, and we can ship you all the books and things at that one time. But with that being said, man, 702-272-4775 is our temple. Download that to your mobile phone. That's that Cash App. And then I will send you each month, if you want to donate $50 a month to be a student, because we're building, you will get all the information. I love you all again, Moors. Peace, light, and illumination. My empress said, if you want to log on to the lecture in Flint in July, $20 donation, and I'll ship you a Divine Creed of Moorish Islam. I love you all. Peace.